If you're running a business website, quality assurance is one of the primary factors that's going to increase your conversion rates. It's going to increase the number of leads you generate. It's going to increase how you stand when it comes to search engines. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. Here is a valuable function that you can deliver for clients, and it's called website quality assurance. Now, we're going to talk about the different layers of a website when it comes to management. We're going to talk about some of the facts of running a website. A lot of folks think you can just put up a website and keep it running, and as long as it doesn't crash, you're okay. There's a lot more things that can go wrong than just the website not loading a page. We're going to try to stay away from the technical issues because it's a lot of times the marketing department that can drive the web quality assurance, because good quality assurance on your website means that your analytics are clean. And when you have clean analytics, you're more able to do your marketing conversions, to test copy, to do more complex campaigns, and ultimately grow the business. Now, a lot of the websites that I've done web quality assurance for are websites with 1 million or more unique visitors a month. So I've done this with Cox Communications, Dominion Enterprises, Lillian Vernon, a couple other large organizations. Now, here's the key when it comes to running a high volume, high capacity website, is that all of these things we talk about today are critical, but if you don't have this volume of traffic and you have any conversions, it's also critical, because these layers have to do both with the intersection of the content you're putting on the site and the customers that are interacting with your site. Now, if you're a publisher, this is even more important, and so this is kind of a e-commerce publishing centric model. So again, if you've published content for customer service, if you publish content for conversion, if you have marketing campaigns going, if these quality assurance measures are not in place, you will have problems with the website. Now, we're going to talk beyond just broken links. A lot of people stop there. They just simply do a site audit using some kind of tool, and then they fix the broken links. We're talking about the structural functionality of the website so that the website works to track conversion, to deliver content, and to integrate with your back end so that ultimately you can know the difference between a sale and a non-sale, or so that the sales transaction can complete. So let's talk about those layers. The layers, and I was just going to go over them in a list. The layers include the public. So that's the infrastructure that gets the last mile infrastructure that gets the visitor to the website. It talks about the channels. Those channels are not your sites. You don't own these channels necessarily. It's the YouTube, it's the search engines, the different platforms that feed traffic to your website. The next layer is analytics, which measures the interaction between public spaces and your content itself, so that you can identify where customers are coming from, where leads are coming from, what content or context is valuable. Now we talk about the content. Of course, that's what you're publishing on the site, but there's a back end behind that content to make sure the content renders correctly, to make sure the content is consistent, to make sure there's contextual linking between content on the site, to make sure your site search works. Finally, there's integration. And integration is how we're talking to the back end. Are we integrating to a CRM platform so that when a lead registers on your website, they opt in on your website, that lead also shows up in the CRM system, so that the lead also shows up in some kind of tracking platform, so that the lead shows up in the email autoresponder or the marketing automation. Next, you have the administrative duties of these, and often these administrative duties is the content that we're writing showing up on the website in a way that is generating traffic? Is the e-commerce platform functioning correctly, and we're meeting our numbers when it comes to the merchant account so that we're actually getting paid out on our merchant? Are we having problems with complaints? That's the administrative part. And then finally, we have the editorial element. Now, all of these layers are between your business itself and the potential customer, but the editorial layer is making decisions based on, the analytics. It's making decisions based on what content is getting delivered and what content is not. So if you have a very high bounce rate, that's a sign that things aren't getting delivered. And then finally, it's part of that administration. So the administration may be looking at the analytics, may be looking at the content and saying, look, over the next 12 months, this is the kind of content we need to produce. Here are the kind of offers that work. Now, these layers combine together to give you information about what kind of content should be on your content delivery network. So this is a cross-functional element between the marketing and the technical elements of the website, as well as the administrative parts of the business. Because one of my arguments is don't publish more content than you have to. If you're producing the right amount of content to get the traffic, to get the leads, to get the sales, you don't need to produce twice as much content, because that's not going to automatically mean more conversion. You need to dial in that conversion with the analytics. So it's an intersection between the layers. Analytics is next to the content layer. Analytics is next to the channel layer. What channels are generating more leads? You could have 8 articles on your website, and just by increasing the amount of volume to those 8 pieces of content, increasing the quality of the volume to those pieces of content, which means going out in the public, it means going out into the channels and bringing in more quality traffic. If you go from 8 pages to 16 pages, all you have is more stuff to administer. Because again, you might have a digital takedown notice. You might have content that has been deemed misinformation for some reason. You may have content that has been picked up by, maybe a contractor wrote it and it got picked up by one of these copyscape platforms, and now you're arguing whether it's unique content or not. See, that's part of that content layer. Now, from between backend and your channels, you have a layer of analytics, and I'll use Google Analytics as an example here, where in your channels, you're using UTM codes so that we know which channel's feeding what lead. But on your back end, you've got events. So in your e-commerce platform, a transaction happens. Is that platform properly throwing events to Google Analytics? And now on the very back end with the integration, administration, and editorial, you have the e-commerce platform and then the decisions, the marketing decisions, the business intelligence. Now, again, this is complex, and many businesses will ignore everything past broken links, how fast a web page loads, what shows up in their maintenance dashboards or their analytics dashboards. And that's why, as a service, I've offered this kind of website quality assurance, positioning it from a project management perspective rather than something that my organization is going to do completely. See, there's a lot of moving parts to have a functioning e-commerce platform or a functioning publishing platform. And if you don't have these insights of these layers, you're going to get stuck working just the analytics component, just advice on content delivery, just the hosting. And that's not going to serve the customer in the long run. Now let's talk about content delivery networks. A lot of page speed problems you may have noticed are in the pixels, the analytics, and other tools. So I manage a number of websites, and on the majority of those websites, we can dial down our server to the point where pages are loading in milliseconds. All of our images and video content is delivered from a content delivery network that's distributed globally, and then the actual the rendering of the page is done with caching, and it's fast. But the Google Analytics, the Google Tag Manager, the Facebook Pixel, the LinkedIn Pixel, the Twitter Pixel, the HubSpot chat bot, the Microsoft's analytic tool that tells you hotspots on the page, all of those things take 10 to 15 times more to download. Now, that end user has cached a lot of those things because they're common across a large number of websites, but ultimately that page speed, you're not going to get any faster than that. So what we have to do, and this is where when you understand these layers, you can make better decisions. What we have to do is deliver content value so strong that that individual will wait 2 or 3 seconds in order to read or attach or see the content. Now, we can do that with our headlines. We could do that with our opening paragraph. We can do that with our metadata or whatever data is getting pushed out to these channels. We can do that with the RSS feed. We can do that with an email capture, meaning you capture the email first and you find out who the person is, and then you can invite them back to content, because if they've been invited to content through their email, they're more likely to go and take the time to see the content. But again, if you're only looking at broken links, misspellings, grammar, whether or not a page loads in its entirety, you're not thinking about this intelligence side, which is a valuable component of the experience for your end user. You might also have content classifications. Content on the content layer isn't just what you're posting on the page. So as a marketer, there's lead generation pages, so landing pages. You know that there's sales letters. There's product landing, so it's in a catalog. You might have a product page. That there are opt-in forms that could be embedded inside of existing content. That there could be lists of recent articles or popular articles. That's 5 components right there. Now, there's more components because you have your above your fold, below the fold, you have your masthead, you have your footers. All these components have to be managed on the website. Now, when we're looking at this type of content, we're looking at the template or the layout of a page. That's a value add area that you can deliver to your customer. Now, again, if you're running Microsoft's got a really nice hotspot tool, and there's a couple other real nice hotspot tools out there. If you're looking at where the eye tracking is coming down the page, where the mouse cursor is moving down the page, that's going to inform your user interface design. And then you're going to go on from there. Now, you might be saying, well, Justin, this sounds extremely complex, and this is a whole lot of stuff, and this is something that majority of my clients, they don't understand. It doesn't catch their attention. All they want is more traffic. What I'm saying with website quality assurance is that the search engines are measuring this on your site, not just how fast your page loads, but the layout, the interactions. They may not be measuring it directly, but when someone comes from a channel, they're getting picked up by the analytics and they're landing on your content. If the back end behind the content doesn't push that content quickly, if the content's not laid out appealingly, if the context of that content is not attractive to the end user, if all these things are not in place, it doesn't matter if your website gets 10 visitors a day or 10,000 visitors a day, you're going to be impacted by it. So maybe you're not going to go in with a client and talk about all these elements. Or maybe you need to be talking to people that are higher up in the organization. Because when I sit down with a senior level executive, or I sit down with a sales executive and I show them this chart, which, by the way, if you write into my office, I can make this chart look a little nicer and get you a copy of it. But they are concerned about the big picture. And the big picture is, how does the public interface with our distribution, our internal products and services? And they do so through channels, through the analytics, through the content, through the back end, through the integration, through the administration, and through the editorial. It isn't just what you posted on the website, it's how they interact with it. And so, again, you might have graphics designers that want to put the flashy little, everything's got an icon everywhere, but in the mind of your prospect, the little icons look like shortcuts, and they don't make any sense, and they're confused, and they don't think it's hip, and then they decide they don't want to work with your company. So there's even a psychology of the content and how it interfaces with the analytics. Now, how do you know whether your visitors want X or Y? Again, that's the analytics side. But if the back end isn't working correctly, then the analytics isn't going to be correct. So when you're talking with a senior level executive, when you're going beyond the technical people who host the website, and you're connecting with the marketing people who run the marketing, and you work with the managers who produce the products, or the salespeople that go out and sell the product, you're now connecting these people in a holistic way so that the website can deliver. Now, this isn't just about a website, because the model that I'm sharing here comes with, it works well in other interactions such as a storefront. So the public, what is the threshold resistance of someone from the public walking into a store? It works with The sales approach, what are the channels in which we can reach out to prospects? How do we know which channels work? What are we going to deliver as far as our presentation? On the back end, how are we supported as selling professionals? What's the integration necessary so that the salespeople get the information they need, but management gets the information management needs? How do we administer all of this? And then finally, how do we develop the copy and the tools in the editorial side? So this is a universal platform, and I'm describing it to you here as website quality assurance because it's easiest to see there, but it does really expand to all parts of your organization. So I worked with one organization that had an outside sales force, meaning they had people that went and knocked on doors. And this wasn't that long ago, but the same thing works here. We actually, speaking on the content layer, we noticed that customers who did not buy on the first interaction wanted more information. We did not have more information to give them that was useful in bridging them from interested to another appointment to do a sale. We ended up going into a stock room and cleaning out the stock room, and this is the basis of my Recycle Your Marketing program, and we added cover letters to material from Shell Oil, from other organizations. We came up with 2 or 3 cover letters that were situational for the bulk fuels that we had, for the fuel sites, and for ultimately the bulk lubricants. And then we ended up just cleaning out the closet. And it seemed like we were cleaning out the closet, but ultimately what we were doing is satisfying a need in the marketplace that was identified by analytics. So we made a list of the types of customers who asked for more information, who then became actual customers. And we determined what were the things that they needed, what were the questions that they had, and then we developed materials. Now, fortunately, we could develop a cover sheet for materials that already existed and materials that we want to get out of the office anyway. But do you see where the mindset shift puts you in a position to serve the customer, to understand how to not just to make them buy, not just to make them opt in, but make it so easy that they do business with you over anybody else. Now, if you'd like to talk about this specifically from a website perspective, we can back into your agency. So if you have a client that perhaps you're just doing the editorial layer and they need somebody to help them with the analytics layer, we do have resources to help you with that. Now, we can do the full cycle and manage teams because this is not something one person does. You don't go in there and handle the channels, the analytics, the content, the back end, the integration, the administration, and the editorial all by yourself. You can manage it. You can lead those teams to make sure the client's getting what they're expecting. You can audit these channels and these things to determine where to focus your attention. But if these layers are not properly addressed, then you might have somebody who comes in from a channel hot and strong. Analytics is showing you that they're opting in quick. They're ready to become customers, but then the content doesn't appeal to their need for information to make a buying decision. The back end fails to work, and they've been trying to reach you through that contact form that's nobody's ever tested on the website. The integration fails because nobody follows up by a second channel, so they know the person opted in, and they're expecting the person to come back to the website, and nobody ever bothered to check the autoresponder to see if it's actually doing what it's supposed to, and no salesperson even knew that lead existed out there to do a manual follow-up or to get a phone number, and now the administration is pissed because their numbers are not working, and ultimately you end up spending more time creating content that nobody reads when you had a sales prospect right there. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips, and I hope I've made this complex topic easier to understand. Web quality assurance is about making sure that all these layers that exist on every website, no matter how big or small the website is, that these layers are in place so that businesses aren't wasting time creating content nobody reads or setting up new opt-in forms that nobody ever sees. It helps you with your A/B splits so that they're cleaner, faster, helps you with cleaner, faster analytics. It helps you determine where you should be spending money when it comes to content delivery or the actual hosting platform itself. If you're supporting an e-commerce or a publishing platform, and these sites tend to make these metrics are easier because they have a lot of lot more visitors and more content to work with. Contact my offices at www.ecommerce-marketing.com. adbriefings.co.uk and ask your questions. Web Quality Assurance is a legitimate platform to grow your marketing agency as well as deliver high value services to your clients. It goes beyond the site audit. It goes beyond broken links and whether or not images are loading, and helps you understand the business intelligence side of creating and keeping profitable customers. Again, I'm Justin Hitt, and this has been the Ad Briefings Copywriting Tip newsletter, and we're talking about the business of copywriting, how to grow an agency, what kind of services you might provide, how to present those services, and frankly, some concepts that you will not find talked about anywhere else because these are in the trenches, experientially derived concepts that frankly a lot of businesses fail to understand even exist, and therefore they get poor results, they get fewer conversions, and they ultimately struggle. And this is something that you can bring in and show an executive, and the executive will understand it, and then you can help them solve real problems. Again, it goes beyond 24/7 monitoring, search engine optimization checks, conversion tracking checks, attribution checks, and is the holistic approach to the website quality management, to the website quality assurance. And again, I'm looking forward to your questions, and I'll see you in the next podcast.